Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for letting me go and come back. And Dr. Hamburg, thank you so much for being here today. I heard the questions at the beginning, the answers at the beginning, missed some in the middle, but just wanted to make one observation about the tension that I think exists around some of these issues. You know, the mission statement of the FDA is pretty clear that it's both about the public safety, public health, and also about driving innovation in our medical device industry, or supporting innovation, maybe is a better way of saying it. The tension that the folks in my state feel that are in this, doing this work, this incredibly important work of developing medical devices, I think is rising as a reflection of the globalization of the industry. And the concern that a lot of us have is that we may not own this industry in the 21st century, or that we may lose it. One thought that I have is whether we want to consider changing the mission statement to recognize the global economy that we're in and the importance to the United States of being able to drive this, or maybe that's not the right place to do it, maybe it's somewhere else. But I wonder whether, just more broadly, your efforts are commendable, but are we moving at a rate of speed that's going to get us to a place where we're going to be able to compete in real time with the rest of the world, or not lose the advantage that we have?
Well, I certainly share your concerns, and certainly in terms of my leadership at the FDA and the orientation of all the extraordinary staff that work with me at the FDA, we see our mission as doing our very, very best to assure the safety and effectiveness and quality of the products that we regulate, but also to help support and facilitate the translation of opportunities in biomedical research and science into products that people need, and also to try to provide some sort of recognition of the need to match unmet public health needs with opportunities that exist in terms of available science and technology. And so we are committed to all of those things. I have actually created within my office in recent months a special focus on innovation, trying to support all of the good ideas, programs, and policies that are spread throughout FDA with a focus on advancing innovation. I've also been trying very hard to work with my colleagues in government and outside to really look at what can we as a nation do to strengthen our programs and policies to support innovation, because FDA plays a critical role, but it also has to do with patents and IP. It has to do with economic policies and taxes and incentives. It has to do with reimbursement issues, and it has to do with making sure that FDA takes a very hard, serious look, which we are doing, at how can we streamline and modernize our regulatory systems to make it easier for companies to work with us, and to make sure that those exciting and promising candidate medical products actually make their way into the market.
I think that's well said, and I think everything that you said is true. And what concerns me when I have the people come in is because they're in the device manufacturers, because they're, or the inventors or entrepreneurs, because their interaction with the federal government generally is the FDA. They're looking for the FDA to help solve this problem on competitiveness, or to at least not compromise their ability to be competitive and stay here in the United States and do the work. And I feel like I'm having the same conversation year after year, with respect, because I know you are doing a lot of this work, having the same conversation year after year. And it sometimes feels to me as though it's no one's day job, and you just said it is some people's day job. It's no one's day job to say, how do we hold on to the competitive advantage that we have, or create more competitive advantage going forward? I think the more efforts, and it's not just an FDA issue, as you said, patent issues, all kinds of things. Whose job is it to think about and to really implement policies that are going to drive innovation in the country? So I just want you to know that I look forward to working with you on this to try to support these efforts on behalf of Colorado, but on behalf of the country. And before my time runs out, we're now at a point where, just to shift gears for a second, 80% of our drug supply chain is coming to us from offshore, and you have acknowledged that as an issue, and I think stated the need for us to work with international regulatory agencies to make sure that we can stay ahead of the problem of a compromised drug supply and other issues. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what that will look like and whether we're doing everything we can to try to inspire international cooperation around that issue. It's a big surprise to people in Colorado when I tell them that 80% of their drugs come from overseas and that we actually have very little in the way of inspection of those plants, especially in China and other places, and that we can't always be sure of what's in our pharmaceuticals.
It's such an important problem. Globalization has really changed the world, and it really requires that FDA changes the way that we do business. You're absolutely correct. Today, 80% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients in drugs taken here actually come from other countries. About 40% of the finished drugs taken here come from other countries, and we need to recognize that the supply chain for these products has gotten very complex and much more complicated, with many points along the way for potential unintentional or intentional contamination, adulteration, or impacts on quality. And so we need to really transform. When our agency was first created, the world looked very different. We need to transform, and we need to move beyond the borders in terms of how we inspect and ensure quality in products coming into this country. We need to work much more closely with sister regulatory authorities to share information, to try to harmonize standards and approaches, and to actually, in some instances, share the workload in terms of inspections. There are way too many facilities out there for any regulatory authority to get in and inspect them on the, with the frequency that we would like, and so we're really developing those kinds of relationships. We also have to work in much closer partnership with industry, who clearly needs to be accountable for the supply chain of their products. And at the end of the day, through working together, we need to be able to assure the integrity of the supply chain and the trust and confidence of the American people in these products. We've also now set up offices in many countries around the world that provide a regional presence for inspections and activities, working with industry and other stakeholders and our counterpart regulatory authorities to ensure that our standards are understood and being met. We're also trying to work hard with many countries that have less sophisticated regulatory capabilities than we do to help raise their standards, which will serve us all. So there's an enormous amount to be done. I know that you've been taking a very serious look at this, and we welcome the opportunity to work with you as you examine what kinds of additional authorities might be needed.
Well, I appreciate that, and my time is long expired, but I want to thank the chairman and the ranking member for letting me go over for a second. The authorizing statute for the FDA, as you know, was written, I think, in 1938. It was in the 30s, sometimes when the entire supply chain was domestic, and now I think it's high time for us to take a look at that. I also want to let you know that I've asked the device guys in Colorado to give me the 9 or 10 pain points that they really have, and we will get those to you, so that in an effort not to have the same conversation next year that we had this year, and I hope it'll be useful to you as you think about it.
Well, I appreciate that. It is very useful to hear directly from people, on the ground, what are the critical issues and perceived barriers and concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.